I had one of my harmonizers with me, and all we did, we had them milk a cow just enough to put into a cup, and then they tasted the milk from the cup. And then I took a harmonizer cartridge and I just touched it to the side of the cup and took it away, just a second. Then he drank it again. His eyes got big. How did you do that? It was like magic trick.
Welcome to the New Age Human Podcast. I'm your host, John Astasio. Today, I have a question for you. Are you looking to own your own farm, homestead, or simply grow vegetables in your backyard? Or maybe you have one already and you're looking for ways to increase your crop yield and save on costs to maintain. Well, today, you're in luck because I have Gary Greenfield, who is the leading expert in structured water and the field of water filtration. He's also the founder of Greenfield Water Systems. Now, what's cool is we go over a review on what structured water is and how it benefits your farm, including plants, poultry, dairy, animals, and more importantly, how it saves you money. And before we begin, check out our Telegram channel. It'll be in the show notes where we discuss topics mentioned in the show, and more importantly, what topics are of most interest for you. Also, if you like the show and you want to help us grow, feel free to leave us an awesome review on Apple Podcasts, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. All right, let's go. So I know that not everybody has watched all the episodes with New Age Human. And so, Gary, let's give the audience, the listener, a review of what structured water is so we can have a base to walk from.
Sure. Okay. Well, structured water is simply water in its natural form as it's found in nature. And that would be after it's been cycled through the hydrological cycle, where it falls from the skies, seeps down into the soils, and then goes into the aquifer. And then it levitationally comes up through the aquifer and out of springs, and then creates creeks and rivers and lakes. And as it's going through that, and then and at some point in there, the water evaporates and leaves behind pollutants and such, and rises up into the air again and is cleansed and absorbs more beneficial energies, and then drops again. And then as it's going through the strata back down to the aquifer, it's picking up more information and minerals, and as it's coming back, the same thing is happening. And so, and all of that is really based on two principles of movement and vortexing and energy transfer. That's really what it's all about. And it's nothing that is new, that it's some kind of modern phenomena or something that science is doing to enhance water in its natural state. We're simply using natural technologies, or we're just using biomimicry to bring water back to its natural state using vortex action. And ideally, it's toroidal, which means a left and a right turn together, and energy transfer with all the elements of the periodic table and anything else that is beneficial. And that's basically it.
And you would say structured water versus like traditionally filtered water through our systems, through the faucet and all that, and even filters that don't structure water. Would you say I think we're in agreement that that's considered dead water because it didn't go through those processes, right?
Well,
of the toroidal field,
yeah.
field and all
Well,
that.
yeah, typically, and that's only because, to even use the term structured water is a modern definition, because up until the last century, all water was just in a natural state pretty much. It may have been dirty or polluted from perhaps being exposed to sewage, but, or perhaps maybe from a mine that we didn't have up to 150,000 chemicals that it could be exposed to. So that really wasn't an issue. And so all water was in a natural structured state for the most part. It may have been polluted and would need to be filtered, as you say, and that would typically happen through that natural process of vortexing and going through the strata of the earth, cleaning it, and then bringing it back up. And I mean, that's what we were told since ancient times, to bury our fecal matter, and those energies in the soil work to break down, along with the microbes, break down fecal matter.
Mm-hmm.
And as the water, if water is polluted
And
as it's passing through the strata, it's being cleansed and just through exposure to the elements.
it's interesting how you mentioned just nature's natural process of getting rid of pollution and pollutants and contaminants, and you're pretty much mimicking that as best as you can with your filtration systems. And I want to get into how passionate you are in the benefits and the applications for farming,
Yes.
because I know people like myself. Actually, I'm one of the people on the list that want to have a homestead, right? I want to have my own chickens. I want to grow my own vegetables and stuff. But structured water, filtered water is good for drinking for us. But I think a lot of people forget that when you're farming and you're growing your own food, which a lot of people nowadays are attempting, right? There's huge benefits for that aspect of our life. So let's go into that. I know that there's a lot of farm applications, and you're the guy, this is your passion, this is your new project. Go ahead and share with us what are some of those farm applications for structured water, and we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, back in 2009, when I was first exposed to the whole phenomena of water in a natural state that's been subjected to all kinds of adverse technologies and pollutants, and that was all based on books that I read by Victor Schauberger, who pretty much knew what was coming because of the condition of the world, and that was during the first half of the 20th century, and and water. That was my passion. After that, I just had a vision for being able to bring water back to its natural state and take advantage of the invisible energies in a non-sacrificial way that could benefit people, plants, and animals, and also to take advantage of the vortexing as well. And so that was what I just kind of fell into, and then just through partnering with various people and learning all I could, the various phenomena that I would need to know about in order to understand these properties, because they were invisible. We had to figure out how could we measure their effects with animals and plants
Right.
specifically. And so many opportunities opened up to be able to do that. And when it was, I mean, I really saw it as a God-given opportunity, because I had no farming background. Although it's interesting, because when I first came out to Idaho when I was 21 years old, I wanted to be a farmer. And I got it. And my first job was with a farm chemical company. So I got into farming all right, but it was all about chemicals.
Yeah.
I lasted about 3 or 4 months and thought, man, if this is what farming is all about, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I was so tired of shoveling fertilizers and pumping chemicals and working with anhydrous ammonia. It's very dangerous stuff. And so I quit and never went back to it until 35 years later or so. And then the doors opened
If
up.
we can expand on that, I mean, let's give people an idea, like how toxic is this stuff? Can you give people an idea,
Yeah.
like what is there like a specific story or like a specific experience that when you were like, this is just that's it?
Well, the whole world, every academic pursuit is based on these dark technologies, and it has to do with taking elements which can clean, feed, and protect, but corrupting them so that they can continue to do those things, but not in their original form, but now in a form that is no longer natural. So now it can be patented, because you can't patent anything that's natural. It has to be some new phenomena. And so we've lost touch with the power of nature to feed, clean, and protect, and to take advantage of all the wonders of nature. And we've replaced them with all of these corrupt technologies that of course, the pharmaceutical companies give us, and we know how evil they are. But yet the chemical companies, well, like Monsanto, we don't hear about them anymore because, they've been bought up by Bayer. And I'm certain that the media has buried any references anymore to that sort of media attention. The media is pretty much
Yeah.
doesn't touch any of this stuff anymore. So, but the whole world, everything is now being polluted in and destroyed by these
Yeah,
chemical companies.
and like the canisters that they bring them in, right? They're like toxic waste bins, and I heard that like you have to store food or crops that you just sprayed in like a separate area container because
Yeah,
you
but
you
why
shouldn't
does it
even like
matter?
be near it
Yeah.
afterwards.
Well, but that's what they just put on the
It's
crops.
so bad.
It's all crazy.
Right.
It's absolutely insane what's going on. Yeah.
Oh my
So,
God.
and of course, with water being in a corrupted state as well, they've corrupted all the elements of the earth. That's basically it in every form.
Pretty
And
much.
they're not done. They're continuing to corrupt. They want to corrupt every single fruit and vegetable on earth and change them. And the same thing with humankind. So we're not headed in a
Hmm.
good direction.
So let's talk about the direction we should be going in. And I know you're a big part of changing that direction. So I do appreciate you.
Yeah.
And so I know that you have a humongous filtration machine I saw on your website. And I'm wondering, when you have something for the farm that's going to structure the water, I mean, my mind is thinking you can use it for the water. Like the obvious answers would be it's good, healthy water for the animals to drink. But I'm wondering what happens to, like, what are some of the benefits to the farm as far
Yeah.
as or applications? Can you put it in the crops? Do you put it in the food that you give the animals? I'm wondering, like, what else would you do?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, my vision was to create an implement that could supply water in its natural state to as much land as possible with one implement. And so, and with a crop that's been irrigated, and typically irrigated crops can be irrigated with a pivot, which will supply on the average of 160 acres. And we do that with an 8-inch unit, but you can also do it there. Some farms that don't use pivots, they'll use drip irrigation. There's a farm in South
Mm.
Africa that grows strawberries, and they have a 12-inch supply line for their 500-acre farm that grows strawberries using drip irrigation. And we put a 12-inch structuring device onto that farm. So typically it can be as large as 12 inches. We could go higher if we needed to, but typically you're not going to get an irrigation line that's larger than 12 inches. That's pretty big. The average
And what's a
irrigation line.
pivot?
A pivot, that's if you everyone has seen them. They create they go around in circles. They create the circle irrigation plots that can take up 165 acres. I don't know what it's like back east, but all over the Midwest and the West, they're everywhere. And they're just
Oh,
simply a
okay.
pivot that's connected to a well, and they're on a motor, and it just slowly drives this long irrigation line that's on wheels with sprayers on it in a circle around acreage. And so we connect one of our units to that,
Oh,
and we're able to supply that crop with water that's structured and energized. And the benefits we
okay.
get from that crop are, well, it starts with, well, we change the water such that it will reduce pump pressure. So the pumps don't have to work as hard. So we save electricity. And initially, if there's any biofilm or any buildup in the lines at all, it gets flushed out. We open the end, the end of the pipe, and that water penetrates the biofilm, breaks down the biofilm, and cleans it out of the pipes and cleans up the nozzles as well. We can then we have less friction, of course. So that means that's why the pump's working not as hard as it normally would.
Mm.
And then what we also find is because the water is able to penetrate the soil more efficiently, we can reduce water usage by an average of 30% because the water is
Wow.
just made more available to the plant root structure. So it doesn't need as much water. A lot of water gets wasted when it's not structured. And in a structured state, we find that water doesn't pool where the wheels make these divots in the soil all around the crop. They typically fill up with water in the big mud puddles, and those disappear because the water doesn't sit on the surface. It goes right down into the ground. And then the effects we get from this are enhanced plant growth, greener crops, more healthier crops, mold reduction, pest reduction, improved soil conditions, more robust plants, better formed fruit, higher protein yields, higher nutrient yields,
Oh,
things like that. That would be like for an alfalfa crop or something like that. But for trees like almond trees, if we've applied our system to orchards that were at the end of their life, the end of their fruitfulness, and we extended their life and allowed them to be able to be fruitful for a longer period of time, things like that.
And I'm also thinking, so there's a lot of stuff going on in there. And I'm thinking about just more fruitful crops. And I want to backtrack. You said less mold, less pests, which is very interesting because people spend time and money and extra money in spraying more chemicals to kill the pests.
Right.
You're saying there's less pests without having to spray
Right.
to
Yeah,
kill the pests.
exactly.
How does that
Yeah,
happen?
well, the mold and pest are attracted to low energy environments. And of course, the chemicals that are used to grow the crops create a low energy environment. Even though they get better growth or they get improved growth per se, the nutrient levels are decreased as a result. And there's other
Wow.
issues, but by all we're doing is delivering more energy to the field, to the crop, to the plant, to the root structure. And so insects and molds are attracted to plants that are decomposing, they're dying. They're in a low energy state because they're there to break down the organic debris that's being created. That's just part of the natural process of how nature works. But if it's in a high energy state, they don't mess with it because they'll go where they don't need to. They're not there. They're only there to break down organic debris.
Have you seen any like abnormally large fruit, or is it more that they're healthier, or maybe like a different flavor when you have when you're consistent with
Yeah.
using structured water for your farm?
Well,
I'm curious.
better flavor, better formation of the fruit, larger fruit. Yes, all those things are true. If, for instance, we treated various pomegranate crops in India, and one of the issues they would have would be these sunspots. They reacted to adverse heat, and when we provided them with the structured water, the sunspots disappeared. And the fruit had very uniform color to it without these brown spots on it.
Wow.
So it's
And
able
also,
to respond more. It's able to withstand cold temperatures and very hot temperatures. So it's just more robust in that manner as well.
so I guess the vegetation has a stronger immune system.
Exactly. Yes.
And so I'm thinking of farmers needing to do extra stuff so that when they go to transport the goods, it'll last longer. Would you say it lasts just as long as if it was sprayed? Or like, how does that work? You know how you have to pluck it early and then you have to like artificially age or ripen it? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure that changes.
Yeah. Well, this fruit is more stable. It won't rot as quickly, and it could be treated even with the beneficial energies that are in the water. Those could be placed into storage containers per se, so those energies can be present to enhance preservation of the crop as well. But they would be holding that
Wow.
energy, but it would probably help. I'm just speculating on that, just because when you put a harmonizer in a refrigerator, it will help the fruit and vegetables stay fresher longer. Whether or not,
That
of
makes
course,
sense.
most of them, I'm sure, were not structured, and so, or virtually none of them were. So how much of an added benefit would it have for structured fruit and vegetables? I'm not sure exactly, but I know it does improve the environment.
And the harmonizer, I know we mentioned that in a different episode. The harmonizer would be beneficial for farmers. I can see just kind of like what salt does. It preserves them for longer, right?
Well,
You would say. Would you suggest that?
well, those energies, those frequencies are picked up by the water and carried into the plant. So it's information for the plant, which it uses it's information that is reflective of the elements that emitted it. So it would be like homeopathy, which works even though the physical presence of the remedy isn't there. It's the body responds, the cells respond as though it is, and that's because they're working with the energy. The physical form is just there to carry that, to transport that energy into the environment or to hold the energy until it's taken advantage of. So there's definitely some aspects to science that are much more mysterious. It's an area that we don't even touch the surface of, and it's discouraged in colleges and
Oh
universities to even
yeah.
go there.
Well, you're going into metaphysics and quantum physics, and people call that woo-woo and
Yeah.
interesting. But I do feel like there's a growing interest in it as I have conversations with people on my day-to-day. So it is exciting to find someone that's, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm totally into that. And then the conversation can go for hours
Yeah.
just because of the exploration part of it, right?
Hmm.
I was also wondering, is it possible? Well, how about this? Let's bring it back to, we were talking about big farms. What about like a homestead, right?
Yes.
Someone that like like a smaller farm that they may not have like acreage. Maybe it's 1 acre or less.
Hmm.
Would you recommend something that's for the house and then you just kind of transport it outside, or
Yeah.
how would you
Well,
work structured water
typically,
into that?
yeah. Well, of course, we want to structure the water for the home and for their field or lawn or their animals, their gardens outside. So if we can, we try to have them install it so that it can serve both. Because typically your water line to your irrigation forks off before it gets to the filter system. So typically we can, and you really there's a lot of filtering can happen in nature just naturally from exposure to solar energies and the soil and all the activities that go on that can't really take place within a closed system in a home. So we're not so concerned about physical filtration as we are about getting that water structured and energized. And yeah, I mean, our first experiments, of course, were done on small garden plots, and we had phenomenal results. That was my first exposure to that. I was blown away. That's what kept me motivated and continuing on with our research when very first, and actually wasn't, it was the first that I was personally involved in. I had been working
Oh,
from a long distance with some partners. I was doing the marketing and also coming up with the harmonizer concept. And then I would make trips to the farm and work with them. But for this situation, I personally had overseen the the development of the plot and the research, and then I got to come back when the harvest was when it was being harvested, and I got to taste that fruit, right, and compare the structured water fruit with the normal well water fruit, and yeah, I was blown away. As a matter of fact, I have the video on my website that was
yeah.
preserved. That yeah, it was pretty amazing,
I want to
amazing
reference that
experience.
for sure.
Yeah, it's
What
there. It was. I think it's probably on an article. It might be on the in the Farm Solutions, or it might be article in the under articles, or maybe it's under videos. I'm not sure
Okay.
exactly where it's at, but it's not very long. But and it shows that we I mean it's very unusual because we had 100% increase in crop production, in crop yield, which was
Whoa.
very unusual.
So
That's not
100%
normal.
it doubled.
It doubled, and the formation of the fruit was beautiful.
What?
The taste was even just blew me away. It was
Can
on
you describe
radishes.
the taste? And what was the crop?
Yeah, it was
It was
radishes, but
radish.
they were hot radishes. They were I don't remember. They were long white ones. I can't remember what they were, like a horseradish, right? Well, the ones that were
Okay.
fed by the bore well water, the regular well water, we didn't do any fertilizer or anything. It was just all we did was water. We didn't want to do anything but water to see how they would respond. And the ones with the bore well water, which is when I crunched into it in some video, it was kind of dry, tasteless. There was just nothing there, just nothing. It was like a grocery store vegetable, pretty much. And when but what do you got to compare it to unless you got something to compare it to? And then I bit into the structured water horseradish, and oh my goodness, it burst. It literally just this moisture just kind of it just exploded in my mouth, and and it was so hot. It was moist and juicy and crisp and so hot. I literally had to walk off camera and spit it out because it was so hot. And it
Like
just blew me
spicy?
away. I still remember it to this day. It was back in, I think, 2011 or something like. Just it was it, and
What?
that just really inspired me to just keep going, realizing this is such an amazing phenomena. That's just all we did was vortex the water. And at that time, I didn't even have, I don't even believe, I can't remember if I had the harmonizer on there yet, or I don't think I hadn't perfected the harmonizer yet. I hadn't really developed it to the extent that I did after that. So yeah, it was a pretty
Mm.
eye-opening experience.
Wow. It's funny because I'm starting to grow stuff in my backyard, and we had this conversation around getting fertilizer. And then now that I'm hearing it, I'm like, huh, if I was able to structure the water, I wouldn't even have to be worried about the fertilizer. You save so much money. And I feel because having access to structured water alone will help save a lot of people money and give more people access and encourage them to start growing their own. So that I think that's huge. And then I'm not sure. I haven't had too many radishes in my day. Most of what I experience when I eat vegetables is I'm a huge tomato fan. That's not a vegetable. That's a fruit. I think let's see, vegetable that I would eat because I love my fruit. Potatoes. That would be interesting.
Yeah,
But I think I'm trying to think like a lot of people that I know grow, let's say tomatoes, cucumbers, like the basic, like replacing your basic grocery list.
sure.
Have you had any before and after experiences for anything that your average person would eat at a store that they can mentally, because everybody listening knows what it tastes, what bland grocery store food, vegetables and fruit tastes like. So it'd be awesome if you can give a comparison of something that would be like an average person would have eaten.
Yeah, well, there is more to it than water. When I say we didn't use fertilizers because, or any kind of supplements, we just wanted to look at the water. We weren't concerned about anything else. The soils were it was pretty good soil, but it was just we just focused on the water. But growing is much more than that. For instance, the more minerals of the more elements available to a tomato, the tastier it's going to be, and
Mm.
you just don't have that exposure anymore. And of course, the water will enhance all those elemental uptakes. But yeah, there it is important to have good soil. And the problem today is that a lot of soil has been destroyed, or I wouldn't say destroyed, but we got to bring it back to its natural state. It's going to take microbes and organic matter. Typically, those are the biggies, and some humic acids or something like that, or compost teas, things like that. But those all
Yeah.
will definitely enhance. But it's not so simple as just using water. But water, I believe water will have the most significant impact of anything you can do. It's foundational to everything. Everything you do, once you're providing structured water to the crop or whatever it is, everything that you do after that will just work better.
What about animals like chickens, dairy?
Yeah.
Have you seen any changes like in the milk or in the eggs
Yeah.
or the behavior?
Yes, actually, I have. And again, these were early studies we did in India. We had an opportunity to set up a poultry farm, and they had the very old they weren't modern poultry barns. They were just built with these post and tile roofs, and they were open dirt. They were just open. They were just very natural, I would say. I mean, just I think it was great. And all we did was put a structuring device to one poultry barn. And when we went back to check it after, because it takes about 30 days to raise poultry, so we came back in about, I don't know, about 3 weeks, and the poultry farmer had stated that he didn't realize that chickens could behave in a different manner than he had always seen them behave his whole career. And he said they were always so kind of jittery and jumpy, and they didn't seem like calm animals. He just thought it was just, that's the way chickens are. But what he noticed was that the chickens that were fed the structured water were very calm. They just were very at peace, and they didn't, their feathers were not, they didn't, their coat was just kind of pure and white. Whereas the chickens that were fed the boil water, where they were mottled, and chickens that were fed structured water ate less food but gained more weight, and went to the
Really?
processing plant about 3 or 4 days, about 10% and 10% reduction in time to get to the processing plant. So everything just worked more efficiently. And there was another situation with calf. It was actually on the research center that we built in India. they had a calf, and lots of people have cows in India, and they milk their own. They get their own milk. Cows are sacred there; they're everywhere. And I went to
Yeah.
just on a side story. I even stopped at a coffee shop on the side of the road going to from Mysore to Kumatur, and the the milk came from about a whole bunch of cows that were in the back of the shop. I mean, it's like right from there right to
Yes.
it was the great and the best coffee I ever had. India had wonderful
Wow.
coffee. But anyways, back to this. This little calf was very antisocial and again skittish, didn't want to be around people, and they began to feed it with the structured water, and it changed its whole demeanor. It became social and no fear, more calm. Same phenomena as with the chickens. Another
Wow.
organic dairy that we visited, we were just there to kind of sell them on the whole concept of structured water. And I had one of my harmonizers with me, and all we did, we had them milk a cow just enough to put into a cup, and then they tasted the milk from the cup. And then I took a harmonizer cartridge and I just touched it to the side of the cup and took it away, just a second. Then he drank it again, and his eyes got big. How did you do that? It was like magic trick.
Magic.
Yeah. And yet this was milk. I mean, this was one, you couldn't get into a more natural dairy. I mean, it was just, no, it was just beautiful. I think they did everything. I think they milked them all they had enough help there where they all got milked by hand, from what I recollect.
The best way.
Yeah. And but yet they weren't feeding these cows the structured water though, even though everything else was beautiful. And just the harmonizer energies alone made a difference in the texture and taste of that milk.
Wow. Well, two questions. One, do you know what it tastes like? What would the comparison be? Like, would it taste more fresh? Would it taste more smooth? Is it like a
Yes,
silk?
well,
I'm just wondering.
generally, I don't remember. I tasted it myself. I could tell the difference, but I can't remember what's been with. I don't remember what the changes were with that. It
No
just
worries.
improved it. But with for instance liquor or wine, it softens it. It lessens the bitterness, makes it smoother.
Mm.
And it was probably doing that same thing with the milk, but it wasn't as pronounced, but it was there. We've done it with liquors, that distilled spirits or whatever you want to call it. And typically you can make I don't know what they call low shelf and high shelf liquor. You can make a low shelf liquor into a high shelf liquor, and people can't tell the difference.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anybody that's a bartender, get a harmonizer
Yes.
and turn your bottom shelf into all upper shelf and quadruple your income.
Yeah. Well, actually, they could take the
Change those
vortex.
labels.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be with the vortex, that you do that, which has both in it. That's what really would make the most benefit.
Top shelf structured liqueur or liquors.
Yes.
That would be interesting. And you know how it says like organic and then the price goes up? And you say, if you have a structured sticker, you're like, oh man, it's going to be expensive, but it's going to be so good. We're not even there yet. That'll be an interesting thing to see in the future, right?
Yeah. Well, I do have a distiller down in Texas that's looking at, he wants to make that one of the
Ooh, keep me posted
features
on that. That's going to be interesting.
that separates his distilled products from others.
And interesting enough, it'll be interesting if both I guess before you get the grape, what if like the grape farm, right? I'm not even sure if I'm saying the term right, but the grape farm for the wine had structured water. It was being fed structured water, and then in the, I guess, the winery process, more structured water. I can only imagine like the change, the value, the experience would just go nuts. So that's a cool thing to look forward to. And would you say, let's go, since we're on the liquor and the wine topic, do you feel that, because since Top Shelf, from what I understand, you don't get as much of a hangover, and I think that's one of the benefits of that, right? It just makes
Actually, just drinking structured water
liquor, I guess.
will reduce that. If you drink structured water, it will reduce or eliminate your hangover
Wow.
after a night
That's a
of a count.
huge selling point. Could you technically have a harmonizer with you and you go to the bar and you go clink, and then you know that later on, if you have to go to work the next day, you don't have to worry about it because all of your liquor was near a harmonizer. I'm not setting up
Yeah, well, I
anybody
would
for
say
failure,
again,
and this is
vortexing and harmonizing, and then drinking the structured water afterwards, making sure you're well hydrated. Yeah, that would make a
yeah,
difference for sure. I mean, I can't
I can even
attest to that
imagine.
personally but I've had many reports from individuals that have done that and confirmed it. And even tested it to make sure, because they had friends that said, "Oh, no way that works," and they tested it and realized, yeah, this really does make a difference.
You can vortex it with the. I'm getting
Yeah,
excited about this. I know we're supposed to be talking about
yeah,
farming, but it's all connected.
yeah.
Where you have the tap, right, the beer tap, and if it
Hmm.
had a vortex that it went through
Well,
before it went
unfortunately,
into a
yeah,
glass, I can
it
only
would
imagine.
decarbonate it though, also. So you wouldn't want to do it with beer.
Oh,
You could do it with any non-carbonated product.
now okay, cool. So it actually decarbonates it. Interesting.
Yeah, but also it will, if you structure the water before you carbonate it, it will use less carbonation and stay more stable. But when
Would it
you,
be more potent?
well, I don't know about more potent. It has more. It Yeah, it takes less to carbonate it, and it stays stable. Yeah. So as far as more potent, I guess I would imagine so, because the carbonation doesn't dissipate as quickly.
Right, it'd be bubblier, I guess,
Yeah.
or it'll take less energy to, or a
Yeah, they use
less
less
work to
carbonation.
carbonize.
The gas will last long. That's being used
Huh.
too.
So this stuff will make milk taste better, make poultry less stress, or any animal, including humans, less stress. Because I'm
Yeah.
just assuming you'll be less stressed as a human. That is nuts. Does it do anything with the eggs for the poultry?
Well,
I'm wondering.
yeah.
Or
Well, I
yeah.
mean, I've fed. Yeah, that's something I haven't tested other than. I mean, I fed my chickens when I had chickens structured water, but I also fermented their foods in structured water. I didn't give them dry feed. I would
Oh,
ferment it
okay.
with water and allow it. The eggs are wonderful, but I never did an actual comparison. And there is a study with one of my distributors. It's on their website that will, I think, address that.
Oh, okay. Well, we went over a lot of really cool stuff for farming, and from the big farms and learning new words to like plants like freaking doubling their crop size, and they're more, I mean, structured water makes it more harmonized as a liquid. And then I can see, I remember going to the grocery store, or this happens all the time. You go to the grocery store and like the fruits and vegetables were just like weird. Like it's like an orange coming out of another orange, or you buy the onion and then it has like another onion coming out of it from the side, and those are the undesirables, quote unquote. And I can only imagine. I mean, you slice a tomato in half, and it has geometry. You slice anything in half, it has geometry. So it does make sense when you give it more harmonic frequency, is just going to be better. So
Yeah,
that's
better
awesome.
formation. Those that the original blueprint from the creator, it corrects, it brings it back to that state, because everything we've done in our modern times, we call it improvement and we call it scientific advancements, but we're really detracting from all the. We can't perfect nature. We think we can do better than nature, and all we do is create. We diminish quality of life by doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you the further we away, the further we go away from nature and we try to manipulate things, the less harmonic it is. And I'm always saying that to people. I'm like, it's the further away you go, the more chaotic it is, and just emotionally you see it in the animals. Just like
Yeah.
you were saying, they go from being a little chaotic and an anxious chicken to being a calm, cool, collective chicken that's not gonna probably chase you around as it would have. But we went over a lot of really cool things, and I appreciate it. Is there anything specific that you wanted to share that we didn't go over that you're working on that you may be excited about, or any last minute tips for any farmers out there, whether it be a large farmer or someone who has a homestead or starting out?
Yeah, it was only this year that we've finally developed implements that can be installed anywhere in the world, whether it's metric or American regular pipe thread or a regular American diameter, inches or metrics, where we've developed a coupler system that can make it easy to install our units anywhere with a minimal impact on the irrigation system, where there's no welding involved. It's simply where they cut out a piece of pipe, they slip this into place, and they bolt the couplers together and the units in. And if anything ever goes wrong with it, it's a component-based system. So it used to be if it failed in Africa, then forget it's done. Whereas now the component system actually will diminish the chances of anything going wrong. But if something does go wrong, it's a component-based system, so we can fix it, which is really nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Nice.
that's
Why'd you
just
say?
preparing the way for us to be able to promote the technology internationally in a cost-effective way.
Nice. And you mentioned if it doesn't work in Africa, then that's it, give up. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if, for instance, because of the way we designed the products before, if the body of the unit cracked, we wouldn't be able to fix it. The unit's shot, but it's not going to work.
Right.
But the way we're designing them now, we've got two different designs. We've got a steel design, it's bulletproof. It will never break down. And the technologies are non-sacrificial, so it can last a lot indefinitely. And that's a great product. But the other one, the newest one, is the slip-on coupler system. That's pretty much bulletproof as well, but it's easy to install, which is nice. So especially with countries that don't have the resources or they're more primitive locations, this is a unit that can work well in those kind of locations because we can save the farmer installation cost.
Nice. That's good to know. So, if anybody's interested in your process and getting that set up for their farm or learning a little bit more of how they can implement that into their homestead, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, well, we do. I have distributors for the large products. They're not. You will find them on the website. You'll see the farm solution page, but it really doesn't have a lot of information there. But for gardens and homesteads, we do sell products that can actually supply up to a 4-inch line, which, I mean, most homesteads are going to be 1 inch, maybe 2 inches. And we do have those products on our website, greenfieldwater.com. And we're always available for consultation as well.
Got it. And then when you say the inch lines, you talk about the diameter of the connections.
Yes, all of our devices are built based on whatever the size of your water line is. So if you have a 1-inch water line, you get a 1-inch unit. If you have a 2-inch water line, you get a 2-inch unit.
Perfect. Yeah, I can just hook that up to my hose and just spray.
Yeah, we don't have to be concerned about how many gallons are flowing through your pipe. It's just if it's a 1-inch line, it'll fit.
Boom. Okay, cool. Awesome. This was cool. This is awesome. Thank you so much for breaking that down. Awesome stories. You make me want to now try a radish like from the grocery store just so I can see how it's not spicy. I said that. I don't think I'm going to do it. But yeah, thank you for your time. That was awesome. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure.